Coming up, a major legal development for Prince Harry, which will enrage Prince William and present King Charles with the biggest headache of his reign. I've got the inside story. Plus, more on Meghan Markle's deranged war against the Daily Mail newspaper, as her stricken father, Thomas Markle Sr., fights for his life in a Philippines hospital and insists that his daughter has still not called. Why hasn't she called? Because she doesn't care. But first, Prince Harry is out of control. He is out of control and has completely lost the plot. Absolutely desperate for money, as he's got no job and is therefore flat broke, Harry has taken to the corporate gig circuit, where he appears at quite ordinary hotel venues, far beneath someone of his stature, addressing large groups of drunk executives who are just enjoying a day off from the office and enjoying the raucous company of their colleagues. They don't care what Prince Harry has got to say. It might be a celebrity booking and a recognisable name, no problem. But these accomplished high achievers at these events, they've got no interest in what Prince Harry has to say about the world of business and commerce, given the fact that this guy hasn't got an entrepreneurial bone in his body and everything commercially that he touches turns to mud. They don't care, but it's a novelty to have him. They drink and they chat and they make politically incorrect jokes whilst he's on stage going, "Oh, lovely to meet you all and thanks so much for hanging on my every word." So that's the gig. This is what's happened. This is where Harry is now in 2025, appearing at quite ordinary hotels. This particular hotel where he appeared this week, the rooms go for $300 to $400. Very ordinary rooms. How the mighty have fallen. This is Prince Harry's new life, and it's a joy to behold. But he needs the cash and therefore continues to demean himself and embarrass his relatives over in England by appearing at events like the British American Business Council's 65th anniversary Christmas luncheon. And what is that? That is a booze up, okay? That is about necking as much Pinot Grigio as you can do in one session. And this is a new low for the Duke, because not only is it unedifying and embarrassing that this is what he does now to make a living, well, we've also got the big headache of what he actually said at this event. So what he's done is he's decided to use this platform to once again attack the President of the United States. Now, let me be clear that the majority of people that watch the Mark Dolan show are in the United States, okay? We've got viewers all over the world. New Zealand, Australia, Canada, the United Kingdom, big chunks of Europe, okay? France, bonjour, comment ça va? Germany, auf die Treppe schnell, okay? We are a global show. But the majority of the people that watch the Mark Dolan show are in the United States, and half of you love Donald Trump. Love him. Half of you cannot stand him. You detest the guy. And therefore, it's a divisive issue, and it is therefore shocking that Prince Harry has yet again used a public platform to attack the leader of the free world. This time joking about President Trump's immigration policy. And this is a continued campaign that Harry has launched against the president. So speaking to guests at the Fairmont Miramar Hotel in Santa Monica, which is, it's not a special hotel. They've got the hotel rooms, suites and bungalows, right? And a capacious underground car park. How the mighty have fallen. Don't forget that Harry's primary address growing up was Buckingham Palace, for goodness sake. Sandringham, right? The Balmoral Estate. Clarence House. Now he's at the Fairmont Miramar in Santa Monica with a capacious underground car park with CCTV. It's embarrassing, isn't it? So addressing his audience, he said that they would have to behave to get through customs and past ICE. Now, ICE is a controversial policy. This is about deporting illegal immigrants that have come to the United States. Half of the audience, half of you guys appreciate it and welcome the policy. It was something Trump said he would do. Others consider it inhumane. I don't know. I don't have skin in the game, but it is not the job of the son of the king of the United Kingdom to make these remarks about the deportation plan. And let me say that if ever there was a candidate for deportation from the United States, if there was ever a candidate for an ICE raid, then it's Ice Cube himself, Prince Harry, is it not? Oh no, why have they bundled me into the back of a truck? It seems so unfair. I've been cuffed now and everything. I wonder whether it's because I lied on my visa application about all the weed that I did or didn't smoke back in the day, which I didn't mention when I applied to live in the United States. So, pretty wild that he's making these remarks about very divisive issues, which are highly political, and the magic of the royal family, the magic of King Charles, and previously the magic of Queen Elizabeth, was to stay out of political matters, whether in the United States or in the United Kingdom. And that's why Harry is out of control. He's like a wrecking ball. He has decided to wage war against Donald Trump. Now, it doesn't matter if you like Donald or you don't love him, right? Half of you love him, half of you don't. It's the President of the United States. It is the office of the President. And it's such a headache for the King, who's been working so hard to build bridges with America. It is that special relationship. What this means is that Harry is working against the interests of the United Kingdom. He's a wrecking ball. He's a disruptor. He's a troublemaker. He's an SHIT disturber. He is an enemy of the state. I cannot stress this enough, that Harry is now an enemy of the state working against the expressed national interest of the British people. And I've got no doubt that the King is raging about this. So we know that he's done this before. He's waged a war on the media in the United Kingdom and is always suing them and always losing. In that Oprah interview, they called members of the royal family, or one member, an unnamed member of the royal family, racist. The damage that Harry is doing to his home country, his country of birth, the country that gave him everything, the United Kingdom, is incalculable. It's a scorched earth policy. He's an enemy of the state. He's a disruptor. It's treasonous, and it's deeply wrong. And I've got to say that the more of these speeches he makes in which he attacks the president, the less likely it is that King Charles will have a reunion with him and any kind of long-term reconciliation. And when it comes to William, well, forget about it. Because when William sees Harry on stage at a cheap hotel, where they've probably, you know what I mean? I don't even know if the hygiene. I've been at the Fairmont Hotel, the Fairmont Miramar. It's not actually up to my usual standards. They gave me a nice room, but basically I opened the curtains and there was just a brick wall there. And then there were toe clippings on the bed sheets and pubic hair in the bath. It wasn't perfect. I'm not quite used to that. And there wasn't anyone around like my butler to clean it up. I'm a little bit shocked, I've got to say. This is the life that Harry has chosen. But can you imagine when Prince William sees Harry at these cheap events, right, just hustling for money, a total grifter, when he's doing that using his royal name to chase dollars, and then when he's on stage, he attacks the leader of Britain's most important strategic and economic ally on the planet. Well, at that point, William's like, well, I told you so. And that's why when William becomes king, he will strip Harry and Meghan of their titles, because being Duke of Sussex helps Harry to get these disgusting corporate gigs at cheap hotels in order, he used those titles, right? That's how he gets them. And that's how he exacts a handsome price, is not because of his talent or anyone cares what he's got to say. It is the Duke, right? And it is the son of the United Kingdom. That's why he'll be stripped of all of that, because the guy is treasonous. He's an enemy of the state. He's out of control. So with regards to this World Cup that's happening, right, with England and Scotland already through and Wales and Northern Ireland still in contention via playoffs, Prince Harry warmed up his crowd by saying, the British are coming, hungry for victory, and they're thirsty. Okay, so what he's doing is he's calling the British people a bunch of alcoholics, which is pretty obnoxious, isn't it? And I think that's a bit rich coming from Harry, who, it's my understanding, smoked so much weed, he was baked for a decade. Baked for a decade. And now he's lecturing others about enjoying hard-working, working-class people who are enjoying a beer or two. He also embarrassed himself when a tribute was made to Lord Fellows, Julian Fellows, who wrote the excellent TV series Downton Abbey. Did you see that? The kind of lovely Victorian drama where you got the posh people upstairs in this big house, and the Downton Abbey, of course it was called. And then you've got the staff, the butlers and the cooks and chefs and everything, they're in the basement. And it's this brilliant drama, Downton Abbey. Highly recommend it. And Julian Fellowes is an Oscar-winning British writer who wrote Downton Abbey, created it. And Harry decided, well, there was a tribute being made to this guy. And Harry said, people sometimes ask if growing up with the royal family was a bit like Julian Fellowes' Downton Abbey. He told the audience before saying, yeah, but only one of those worlds is filled with drama, intrigue, elaborate dinners, marriages to Americans, and the other is a TV show. Absolutely hilarious, Harry. Please be still my aching sides. So imagine being on stage and just going, yeah, man, it was a bit like Downton Abbey growing up in my house. I mean, it trivializes the royal family. It trivializes the status that these people have. It is cheap. It's embarrassing. It's so wrong. Harry's out of control. And Harry's on stage at exactly the same time that Meghan's father, Thomas Markle Sr., who's 81 years of age, is fighting for his life in a Philippines hospital, having had a leg amputated. And Harry's on stage doing jokes about servants in the lower quarters and Downton Abbey. Now, this organisation, the BABC, has got about 250,000 members across the US and the UK. It calls itself the leading transatlantic business network. The event was marketed as an opportunity to showcase British enterprise, build connections, and mingle with major corporate figures. Well, why didn't they then have a successful British entrepreneur like Richard Branson, Joni Ive, or James Dyson, for example, the guy that invented the Dyson vacuum cleaner? That's somebody that's achieved something in their life, not the ultimate grifter that is Harry. So Harry goes, the World Cup is coming to the US. Both England and Scotland have qualified. It's a Christmas miracle. Well, that's a bit patronising, first of all, to the England and Scotland soccer teams. He went on to point out that Wales and Northern Ireland are in contention. Who cares? I don't know. But he said that the bars would be stormed, okay? He teased at the US brewing giants about the prospect of millions of British fans coming to the United States. And he said, wouldn't that be something for the great American brewers of Budweiser, Coors and Samuel Adams to celebrate? The British are coming, hungry for victory, and they're thirsty. Seriously, is this what we're doing now? And he said, what could possibly go wrong? Right? An obnoxious slur on his own fellow British people. Harry then shifted into a more reflective tone. Since relocating to California in 2020, he said the UK-US alliance had become deeply personal, insisting that the phrase special relationship was more than diplomatic rhetoric. For him, he said, for me, being British isn't about where you physically stand, but what you stand for. And what does Harry stand for? An egregious and vicious war against his own family and against his country of birth. Looking ahead to the 250th anniversary of US independence, by the way, the royals will be celebrating that in the United States. Harry's not invited. We know that Prince William said he's not coming. We will have a special event. My father will be there and my wife, Catherine, and Queen Camilla will be there. Harry is not going to be invited to Britain's celebration of American independence. It ain't going to happen. And Harry suggests that this milestone of 250 years highlights both nations' complicated past and their present closeness. He says, truly, this anniversary is a chance to reflect on how far our relationship has come from historic tensions to one of the closest partnerships anywhere in the world and back to historic tensions, just like that. What a strange thing to say. Where he talks about historic tensions and then friendship, and now we've got historic tensions again. Is that another attack on Donald Trump, on the President of the United States? Now, it's not about if you like Donald or you don't. It's so wrong of him to be that divisive. I'm not a member of the royal family, and I wouldn't do it. And Harry is just doing it because he's so bitter, he's so out of control, and he's doing so much damage. He added that this special bond means something profound to him because of the American soldiers that he served alongside in Afghanistan. Yeah, whatever. Boring, Harry. We've heard it all before. The two countries, he said, share centuries of friendship, shared values, innovation, and mutual prosperity. But isn't it interesting? Because he talks about how there were tensions between Britain and America and that now those tensions are back. First of all, that's not true. The friendship between America and Britain has never been better. And the other thing to say is that why has Harry chosen that negativity? Why has he invented this idea that there are now fresh tensions between Britain and America? That's a lie. It's not true at all. We've just struck an amazing trade deal with the United States, which is favourable by comparison to almost any other country in the world, including the European Union. So we're in great shape with America. And yet he wants to talk about tensions again. And the reason why is because Harry is pathologically negative and he's toxic. And his commodity is negativity, right? That is how he rolls. He's a pathological narcissist. He sees the world in a very bleak way. He considers himself to be a shocking victim. And he sees conflict and rage and anger and toxicity wherever he goes because he himself is so consumed with toxicity. The luncheon followed a paid speaking engagement earlier in the week where the Duke urged Toronto real estate professionals to prioritise physical and mental well-being, raising concerns about AI and describing his dream residence as an isolated island within an island. Well, go and live there then, Harry. Go and live in an island in the middle of nowhere, and then we can have a break from your tedious ramblings. So this appearance follows his Wednesday night cameo on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. We reported on this on the show just a few days ago, where Harry once again mocked the President of the United States for having elected a king, right? The American people elected a king was the joke. And he also said that the deal with CBS settling a lawsuit with Donald Trump was baseless. The guy's out of control. And then in this latest speech, right, he highlighted how British settlers recycled town names across America, Boston, Manchester, Birmingham, and Richmond, often bearing no resemblance to their UK originals. He said, "It's a new world to me, celebrating independence from Britain, and more specifically, independence from my great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather." He said, "After all, we were able to leave our mark in other ways, mostly just through originally naming places after towns and cities back home. I never quite understood why they did that. I just surely can't be reminded of other hometowns." What is this word salad? It's so boring. I just can't do this anymore, guys. One more dig. He said, "I'm not sure if there's anyone in the room who has ever had the privilege of visiting the Birmingham of the West Midlands in England and the Birmingham of Alabama, but two more wonderfully different places you will not find." What is he saying? Is he saying that Birmingham in the West Midlands or Birmingham, Alabama are dumps? Maybe both of them are. Who knows? But it's so wrong. And it demonstrates a young man, not that young now, in his 40s, out of control. Now, Donald Trump, surprisingly, has not taken the bait regarding Harry's jokes. But he did recently address speculation about whether he might deport the Duke from the US over admissions of drug use in his memoir and questions about his visa declaration. The president ruled the idea out, saying that he had no intention of removing Harry, and he simply said, "I'll leave him alone. He's got enough problems with his wife. She's terrible." So whatever you think about Trump, we can all agree that he's right about Meghan Markle. He said, "I'll leave him alone. He's got enough problems with his wife. She's terrible." The problem is that Harry is terrible as well, and he is out of control. Now, a fresh development for the Duke of Sussex. He's secured a full reassessment of the security threats that he faces after the Home Office, which is like the Department of Homeland Security in the UK, executed a significant reversal of its previous stance. Prince Harry had mounted a prominent legal challenge against the UK government following its decision to strip him of automatic publicly funded police protection. He ultimately lost the case in May, because he always loses his court cases, describing the outcome as an establishment stitch-up, with the Court of Appeal ruling that a dissatisfaction did not constitute a sound legal basis for appeal. Well, despite that defeat, the Duke continued to press the issue privately because he's got so much time on his hands. There's no job. He's got time to write people letters. And he argued that it was not safe for him to bring his wife, Meghan, and their children, Archie and Lily, back to Britain under the current arrangements. As first reported by The Telegraph in October, Harry had written confidentially to the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, urging her department to reconsider its position on his security. Well, sources now suggest that on Friday, the Duke was informed of a major change. RAVEC, the Royal and VIP Executive Committee within the Home Office that oversees royal security decisions, has instructed Risk Management Board to carry out fresh assessments over his safety. Now, the bottom line is that Harry made a decision to leave the royal family. He wanted to be a private individual and he wanted to be a normal person, just a regular Joe. You can't have your cake and eat it. You can't cease to be a royal and have the freedom that comes with that, but then still have the armed royal protection. Now, oddly enough, and let me know what you think in the comments, I believe that this is a bone of contention between you and I, because I don't actually believe. I think Harry should, when he's in Britain, right, I think he should have the armed cops. I really do. And the reason why I take that view is because he didn't choose to be the king's son, right? It was not his decision to be born into the royal family. That was by birth, an accident of DNA. And therefore, given that he's famous, given that he's a royal, and always will be, unfortunately, he's got a target on his head. So I've got no problem with the royal protection. But let me know what you think about that in the comments. I suspect most of you will strongly disagree. But what I will say, and where I will agree with you, is that this is not about safety. Because Harry's been to Ukraine, he's been to Mexico, he's been to Colombia, he's been to Lesotho, right? Parts of Africa, all beautiful places, but with lots of crime, lots of gangs, lots of armed criminals. And so this idea that he cares about his safety in Britain, which is one of the most safe countries on the planet, and the idea that when he's here, King Charles is going to make sure that he's being looked after. Do me a favour. It's the king's son. But the bottom line is that it's not about security anyway. It's Harry wanting an entourage. It's his ego. He's desperate to be Prince Harry. He's desperate to be Duke of Sussex. He's desperate to have the royal cops because it's a flex for him. It's a status thing. And that's why it will be so fantastic when William strips him of his titles, because he will lose that status. It's all he's got. He hasn't got the charities anymore. They can't stand him at Invictus. And he insulted them, partying during Remembrance Weekend at Kris Jenner's 70th, with his wife Meghan snubbing our war veterans by not wearing a poppy at all. So they can't stand him at Invictus, and David Beckham should take over. Centre Barley, a public relations dumpster fire and a complete, a PR hot mess. Then you've got the African parks shrouded in, corruption scandal, all the rest of it, right? So he hasn't got the charities. He's not got any work. He's got nothing. And therefore he needs those titles and he needs the royal security. And he ain't going to have it. What it does do, though, if he gets this royal security, this will be the excuse that he uses to bring Archie and Lily and possibly even Meghan back to the UK. What do you think? Should Meghan be allowed back into Britain, given the damage that she has caused to this country? I don't think she's welcome. And I think she'll be booed, and it will be so embarrassing, and it will probably kill her brand altogether for the unedifying sight of her being booed at when she comes back to the United Kingdom. But there you go. Harry's arrogant war against the British Home Office and the British government continues. Everything he's doing, guys, it's against the interests of the British people, and that's why he's an enemy of the state. He's suing official government departments. He's slandering members of the royal family with the accusation of racism. He's attacking his father's skills. He said he was miserable in London. It was like the awful gilded cage of being a member of the royal family. He's making jokes about the leader of our most significant economic and military ally. The guy is an enemy of the state. He's dangerous and he's out of control. Meanwhile, Meghan continues her wild war against the Daily Mail newspaper, who I've got to say have delivered the truth about Thomas Markle. They're the ones that had the exclusive interview with him. Thomas Markle said, she hasn't called me. I've had no emails. There's nothing. And of course, it was the hospital in the Philippines who spoke to the Daily Mail newspaper, and they said, no, Meghan hasn't called. She's a celebrity. We'd love to have her, and we'd know about it if she had called. Well, let's talk about Caroline Graham, because Caroline Graham is someone that Meghan Markle has got in her sights. Because don't forget, it was Meghan's people that suggested that the Mail on Sunday had manipulated Thomas Markle, and that Caroline Graham who's the Mail on Sunday's US editor, was basically Thomas Markle's puppeteer. That is what's been said by Meghan's people, right? Insiders close to the Sussexes, which means Harry and Meghan. And so they've gone after Caroline Graham. And why does Meghan detest Caroline Graham so much? Well, first of all, she's a truth-seeking journalist, so the Sussexes don't like that. They don't want accountability. But also, Caroline Graham has been a loving friend to Thomas Markle Sr. for years and years and years. And this is humiliating to Meghan because she should be doing that because she is Thomas Markle's daughter. And he gave her life and raised her as a princess from day one and spent $750,000 of $8 million on her education, including acting classes and, by the way, where's the refund? Dance classes as well, and the expensive Northwestern University. So Caroline Graham is a hero. Meghan detests her because Caroline is a better daughter than Meghan ever could have been to Thomas Markle Sr. So what happened is that Caroline Graham received a text message just a few days ago from her dear friend Thomas Markle. By the way, this proves that Thomas Markle has a phone, right? His phone is working and he can text. So Meghan claiming that she's reached out and there's some ancient email address that he doesn't use anymore. She's got his phone number. He said he hasn't changed his phone number in all these years because he wants to have the opportunity for Meghan to text him. Imagine how it feels to be Thomas Markle and you're in a hospital bed and you're about to lose your leg. You've just been told your leg's going to be amputated. You're fighting for your life. And the person that you text about it is a journalist who's a long-standing friend rather than your own daughter, the woman to whom you gave everything. That is a shocking state of affairs that he should turn to Caroline Graham than Meghan Markle. So she writes in the brilliant piece for the Mail on Sunday that she was at her home in Los Angeles when the message appeared at 6:30 a.m. his time. At that point, she says, Thomas had already been admitted to hospital after his left foot turned a disturbing blue-black colour and swelled so badly that he could no longer walk. She immediately contacted his son, Thomas Jr., who lives with him in the Philippines, and his daughter, Samantha, in Florida. Do you see what she's done? Right? She's been the best daughter that Thomas Markle could ever want. She's called the brother. She's called the sister. She's reached out to Thomas himself. She was available. She showed up, which is what Meghan is always talking about on her truly egregiously unentertaining show With Love, Meghan. I like to show up for my friends and family, and the people close to me are the ones that show up for me, and they're the ones that I do the lavender towels for, which involves making the towels damp, and then I drench them in lavender oil and put them in the refrigerator, which is a freakish thing to do, but then my show makes no sense anyway, and it's probably a fire hazard, and if the lavender towels don't burn the house down, then probably the spilt milk, I spill everything when I'm cooking, the milk just overflows. It's all a bit of a disaster. You're welcome. So this amazing woman, Caroline Graham, we love her. She immediately contacts Thomas Jr. and Samantha to let them know what's going on. Both were taken aback to learn that he'd shared the news with Miss Graham before informing his own children and before Meghan. Meanwhile, Meghan and Harry remained in Montecito with the Duchess busy promoting her Netflix series, the new Christmas special, and Harry doing jokes about the President of the United States on US TV. You couldn't make it up. Be clear, Harry is out of control. He confirmed, and Caroline Graham confirmed this, that Meghan has not been in touch. It's complete lies that they've reached out. It's not true. And what he said to Caroline Graham is, of course I want to speak to her, but I'm not sure if these are the right circumstances. I've always said I'm open to reconciling with my daughter. I'd never stop loving her. I don't want to die estranged from Meghan. I want to meet my grandkids. It might be nice to meet her husband too. Caroline Graham explains that she and Markle formed a friendship shortly after the Sussexes' wedding and now speak almost daily. She describes him as someone who has provided emotional support to her during the losses of her mother and her brother, calling him a father figure. When she arrived at the hospital after a 22-hour journey from LA to the Philippines, do you see what she did there? She calls Samantha, she calls Thomas Jr., she gets straight on a plane, all of the things that Meghan should have done. And after a grueling 22-hour flight from LA to the Philippines via South Korea, an exhausting flight, She spent 2 days at his bedside in the ICU. A Mail on Sunday journalist, not Thomas's daughter, Meghan. It's truly shocking. And that's why Meghan detests the Mail and the Mail on Sunday and detests Caroline Graham, because she's shown her up. So Caroline Graham writes that despite everything, Thomas managed to smile and reflected on the unexpected twists that their long acquaintance had taken. He said, this is so surreal. We've been through a lot, you and I. What a crazy journey it has been. She also describes taking a photograph of him in his hospital bed with his permission, because he wanted to thank those sending prayers and positive messages since his amputation. He said, the nurses have told me that people around the world are praying for me, and I want to say thank you for those well wishes. People are so kind, he said. I've been out of it all week, but I'm finally feeling more like myself, and I'd like to show people I'm okay. I'm grateful to the wonderful medical team who saved my life. And it's quite amazing. Caroline Graham had to deal with the foot, by the way, because she said that the foot had rapidly changed colour, doubled in size before he was taken to the hospital. And Thomas Markle Jr. said the foot looked terrible. It had been swollen and sore for some time, but Thomas kept refusing to go to the doctor, as many men of his generation do. By Tuesday, it was blue-black in colour. It looked like the flesh was dying. He said, Dad can be very stubborn, but he agreed to go to the small regional hospital where we live. He was in a great deal of pain. It came on very suddenly. They did an ultrasound and said there was a huge blood clot in his thigh, which had cut off blood flow to his lower left leg. His foot was dying, and he had to suffer all of that alone. And who does he call? Caroline Graham from the Mail newspaper. So it's deeply wrong, and it's quite something that this amazing journalist was there for him, and she was there to inform the world about Thomas's medical condition. And I want to thank her for that. She's done us all a great service. And I think one of the reasons why he might be here still is because of the loving support of Samantha and Thomas Jr. and of Caroline Graham, against whom Meghan seems to have waged war. And Caroline Graham recounts the doctor lifting the blanket covering Mr. Markle's amputated leg after the operation to smell the dressing, which is a method for detecting infection, and declaring himself satisfied with the healing process. So Caroline's been there to witness all of that, right? The infected leg and the amputated leg and the stump and the wound. And it's brutal. She notes that Thomas Markle experienced atrial fibrillation, an irregular heartbeat, on the night of the operation, and remains in intensive care. Then, more recently, a member of the surgical team checked the dressing again and looked at the wound. What's really sweet is that Caroline has been quoting some jokes from Thomas Markle. Although he's cheated death and pines to see his daughter and grandchildren, he joked, I wanted to lose weight, but this wasn't quite the way I imagined it, talking about the amputation. He said, I guess my tap dancing days are over. He also said, with more gallows humour, I'm not hurting, but if anyone wanted to do anything to me, I don't have a leg to stand on. I mean, this adorable man who's a dead ringer for Santa Claus is making jokes about his lost leg. And that's how he survives. That's his coping mechanism. He deserves to have Meghan there, and he deserves to have the grandchildren there, because these could be his final days. He's gravely ill. He's had strokes. He's had heart attacks. He's lost a leg. Right? The guy he's had more escapes than Houdini, but he's going to run out of time. He's using up his 9 lives. And what does he get from Meghan? Gaslit, ignored, and then lies that she's reached out. By the way, I'd rather if she was honest and said, look, I don't like the guy. I've cut him off. He's not a good person. And I've got real bitterness about the kind of father he was, and I'll never forgive him. And I don't want him in my life, and I will not be messaging him, right? That at least would be more honest. But instead, she tries to pretend that she cares and says they've reached out when she patently hasn't. Caroline Graham writes that although Thomas has put on a brave face, moments of vulnerability have surfaced. He admitted the unsettling sensation of phantom limb pain and confessed deeper fears. He said, I don't know if I'll be able to cope with this. I've always been a very independent person. I don't like the idea of spending the rest of my life in a wheelchair. I've been waking up in the middle of the night and worrying about it. He said, I'm grateful to be alive, but living without a leg is a tough prospect. I'm worried. And he's got to worry alone. Returning to the question of Meghan allegedly contacting him, Caroline Graham says that they again checked the facts. With his consent, the Mail on Sunday spoke directly to hospital administrators, front desk operators, nurses, and ICU staff, intensive care unit staff, all said they had no record of any calls from Meghan or her team. Thomas Markle's phone also showed no calls, messages, or voicemail from her. He's kept the same number for years in the hope that Meghan would use it. So it's pretty wild. It's pretty wild. A spokesperson for the Sussexes insisted Meghan had sent an email, but the newspaper reports that it was sent to an address that he abandoned long ago, which I think means that if Meghan did send an email, she sent it on purpose to an address that she knew didn't work. And Caroline Graham wants to help. She's made it clear that if she can do anything to facilitate contact between Mr. Markle and his daughter, then she would be happy to do that. But this is the Sussexes, who have claimed that they're asking for the Mail on Sunday and the Daily Mail newspaper to help contact Thomas. It can't be that difficult. He's in Cebu in the Philippines. And she can call that newspaper. She can call Caroline Graham. Caroline Graham's probably on X. She can send her a tweet, for goodness sake. And Caroline Graham is very upset at this messaging from Montecito that somehow she's the bad girl, okay? She says, any suggestion that I've puppeteered Mr. Markle is entirely false and strongly denied. And there you go. There you have it, folks. The mask has slipped. We know what we're dealing with. So worried, by the way, about this potential change in Harry's security arrangements, because what it could mean is Harry comes over to the UK with Meghan and with the kids, which is going to be even worse for this country, Britain, which is struggling at the moment with lots and lots of issues. The last thing we want is that guy turning up. Meanwhile, he continues to attack the president. The whole thing's a hot mess. Thomas Markle Sr. battling for his life in hospital. They really are the terrible twins, are they not? Folks, thank you so much for watching. It's been great to chat. Please like, subscribe, hit the notification emergency bell, and I will see you tomorrow for another big show and a bit of an exclusive. Bye for now.